Friends, it's day 748 of the unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine, and today the Russian freedom fighters known as the Legion Freedom for Russia and the Russian Voluntary Corps announced the beginning of liberating the Russian citizens from the terrorist regime of Vladimir Putin, widely known as Huilo. This morning, several battalion tactical groups of the Russian freedom fighters entered Belgorod and Kursk regions of Russia. They shared footage showing their men and vehicles breaking through the Russian defense and the retreating Russian army, leaving behind their tanks and equipment. The official Russian media lied that all the Russian freedom fighters were eliminated, even though the attack had barely started. Currently, we know that the town of Tetkino is being fully controlled by the Russian freedom fighters, who keep sending their footage from the ground. And speaking of the Russian propagandists, several funny fakes were disseminated lately by the Russian propagandists in their media. According to one of them, the Roman Pope Francis has been added to the open Ukrainian database of the Russian collaborationists, terrorists and criminals. According to another one, the Ukrainian authorities are planning to rename the Tchaikovsky Street in Kiev after Victoria Nuland. Of course, anybody can freely access the open database and confirm that there's no Pope Francis, and unfortunately the project of naming the street in Kiev to honor this amazing person and big friend of Ukraine doesn't exist in the real life. According to the New York Times, a propagandist media network created by Yevgeny Prigozhin outlived its creator and continues spreading fakes in the US. The investigators exposed numerous recently created fake news websites like DC Weekly, New York News Daily, Chicago Chronicle, and Miami Chronicle. According to the investigators, the fake news resources, utilizing the WordPress and similar design, blend the authentic news with the Russian propaganda. Identifying themselves as American news agencies, they are in reality controlled by the Russian propagandists in Kremlin in order to spread the false and misleading Russian narratives inside of the American society and possibly interfere in the upcoming election cycle. The oppositionist Russian media agency called Meduza published a report stating that the Russian supremacists developed a special assimilation course for the Ukrainian children kidnapped from Ukraine by the Russian invaders. According to the report, the terrorist Russian government created a special handbook for the Russian teachers explaining how to erase the Ukrainian identity from the Ukrainian kids and grow them as members of the Russian society. The book is called Prevention of Conflicts Manifested by Extremism and Terrorism in a Multicultural Educational Environment and addressed to the Russian teachers working with the Ukrainian kids. According to this handbook, the kidnapped Ukrainian kids who identify the Russian invaders as enemies are basically all terrorists and extremists and must be forcefully re-educated or brainwashed. A Russian Il-76 cargo airplane merged with the land in Ivanovskaya Oblast of the Terrorist Federation. Apparently, sanctions work, and if you don't know how to connect sanctions and the fallen Russian airplanes, think about the high-tech parts and components that the almighty Russia cannot produce on its territory and is forced to buy abroad. That is one of the reasons the engines sometimes get detached from the Russian airplanes in flight, like it happened in this particular case. The Russians report that 16 supremacists died in this crash. As we say in Ukraine, best wishes and good health to the dead. My friends, with that I wish you all a beautiful day. I'm operator Starsky. As always, be safe.